Why do so many men feel powerless in love, confused by women's actions, and trapped in a game they don't understand? This video doesn't teach you how to chase women. It teaches you why chasing is the first sign you've already lost. By the end, you'll know why most women silently hope you never awaken to this truth. Most men are not defeated by women, nor by the world. They are defeated by the illusions they have unknowingly accepted as truth. From childhood, they are fed stories, ideals, and roles: be kind, be charming, be available. Love, they are told, is earned through service, patience, and sacrifice. And so, they become actors in a play they never wrote, hoping the applause will come if they play their part well enough. But who wrote this script? Who decided that a man's value is in his ability to please? That he must always be the pursuer, the initiator, the provider, and the protector, often at the expense of his own clarity, strength, or peace? The illusion begins in silence. It starts not with what is said, but with what is never questioned. A boy who is rewarded for being agreeable does not learn virtue. He learns compliance. A teenager who sees beauty being worshipped does not learn love. He learns submission. A man who cannot live without validation from a woman does not learn freedom. He learns dependency, disguised as romance. And yet, very few stop and ask, why do I believe this? This is the first crime against the soul. Not that he follows others, but that he never interrogates why he does. For a man who does not question is not thinking, he is repeating. There is no greater trap than the one that feels normal. Consider this: a man falls in love with a woman who treats him poorly. She ignores him, belittles him, withdraws her affection. And yet he remains. He calls this loyalty. He calls this effort. He tells himself he is being a good man. But is he? Or is he addicted to the illusion that love must be earned through suffering? That his worth is proven by how much pain he can endure without leaving? The truth is uncomfortable. It must be. For only that which disturbs us has the power to awaken us. What if she does not admire you for being loyal? What if she loses interest precisely because you refuse to challenge her? What if the woman you desire most actually desires the man who is unafraid to walk away? These are not comfortable truths, but they are necessary ones. Most women will not tell you this directly, not because they are malicious, but because even they are unaware of it. They too are lost in a world of roles and expectations. They are told to desire the gentleman, but they are drawn to the grounded. They say they want the man who listens, but they melt for the man who leads. They praise vulnerability, yet follow the man who can endure solitude without complaint. This contradiction is not hypocrisy. It is human nature. And the man who understands this without bitterness, without resentment, is the man who escapes illusion. But such a man must first destroy the false self. He must kill the version of himself who exists only to be liked. He must abandon the fear that he is not enough. He must stop trying to win love like it's a contest and instead return to the root of all truth, his own mind. He must ask, what do I know to be true? Not because it was told to me, but because I have seen it in my own experience. Has chasing ever brought peace? Has overgiving ever earned respect? Has silence ever followed the man who knew his value? The illusion crumbles not when it is attacked, but when it is questioned. When a man stops being a mirror for society's expectations and begins to reflect on his own essence, he becomes dangerous, not to others, to the lies that once enslaved him. That is the beginning of freedom, not in rebellion, not in resentment, but in clarity. The woman who sees such a man feels something ancient: respect. Not the shallow respect given to a wealthy man, or a loud man, or a violent man, but the respect given to a man who cannot be moved from his truth. And that truth cannot be borrowed. It cannot be copied. It must be found in the ruins of your former beliefs. Most men are not broken by women. They are broken by the illusions they refuse to let go of. And the tragedy is this: they think they are being noble. But nobility without understanding is still servitude. They think they are being strong. Strength that seeks approval is still weakness in disguise. They think they are being good men. But a good man who lives by lies becomes a slave to them. To know truth, a man must be willing to lose the illusion that once comforted him. He must walk into the silence, and there, without applause, without validation, begin to see. Desire, when left unexamined, becomes the very chain that binds a man to his weakness. And yet, Few ever stop to question the nature of this desire, what it is, where it comes from, and how it controls them. Most men move as if possessed, driven not by intention, but by a hunger that was never their own to begin with. They do not choose what they desire, they are taught what to chase. He sees a beautiful woman. Instantly, his attention is drawn, his thoughts consumed, his behavior altered. He begins to act not from clarity, but from impulse. He adjusts his posture, he changes his tone, he begins to perform, not for himself but for her. She becomes the mirror in which he seeks to see his worth. Is it truly desire that compels him, or is it powerlessness disguised as attraction? This confusion is not accidental. It is engineered, reinforced, and celebrated. A man who loses control in the presence of beauty is called romantic. A man who sacrifices himself for love is praised. A man who puts her needs before his own is honored. And so, generation after generation, men are rewarded for giving up power under the illusion that it makes them desirable. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if power, not submission, is the root of true desire? What if the women who are most admired, most desired, most worshipped, secretly long for a man who cannot be ruled by his own longing? To desire is not weakness, but to be consumed by it is. Power lies not in denying desire, but in understanding it and mastering it. The man who sees a beautiful woman and remains unmoved, not cold, centered, is the man who possesses something rarer than beauty sovereignty. This sovereignty is what women respond to, even if they cannot name it. It is the stillness beneath his words, the unshakable presence in his silence. It is the energy of a man who does not need to win her because he has already conquered himself. And yet, most men fear this idea. They believe that if they stop chasing, they will be alone. If they stop pleasing, they will be unloved. If they stop proving, they will be forgotten. This is not love. This is slavery. The man who understands the nature of desire knows that attraction is not created through giving, but through restraint, through boundaries, through the refusal to be seduced by appearances alone. He is not fooled by charm. He does not mistake attention for affection. He knows that what is truly valuable does not beg, does not perform, and does not fear loss. And this understanding creates power, for when a man ceases to chase, he becomes the one who is chased, not because he manipulates, but because he has mastered himself. She may not say it, she may not even know it consciously, but something in her changes when she meets such a man. Her voice softens, her guard rises, her desire to test him grows, not because she seeks to destroy him, but because she wants to see, is he real? She throws words like knives. She withdraws her warmth. She plays the game she's always played. But this time it doesn't work. He remains the same, calm, clear, certain. And suddenly she is no longer in control. This is the moment most women fear, not because they hate him, but because they cannot predict him. He is not the usual kind of man. He does not tremble under pressure. He does not plead for attention. He is not addicted to being liked. And in this detachment lies his greatest power. Because the woman who cannot control you will either rise to meet you or fall away, and both outcomes are a victory. But this power is not about dominance over her. It is not about games or cruelty. It is about freedom. The freedom to see her clearly, not as a goddess, not as a savior, not as a prize, but as a person. Flawed, beautiful, capable of great love and capable of great harm. When a man sees a woman clearly, he no longer places her above himself. He does not worship her, nor does he resent her. He simply sees. And this seeing is rare. Most men never reach it. They remain trapped in their hunger, blinded by their longing, enslaved by their fantasies. They chase what they think they need, and in doing so, give away everything they truly are. But the man who understands the nature of desire and power does not seek to possess her. He seeks to know himself, and in knowing himself, he becomes the kind of man she cannot forget. Because he is the kind of man who does not forget himself. A man does not find freedom by fighting the world, he finds it by understanding himself. This is the paradox that most never grasp. They chase liberty in their careers, their status, their conquests, but they remain shackled by their ignorance. Not ignorance of facts or information, ignorance of their own motives, fears, and illusions. The world outside reflects the world within, and until a man sees clearly into his own nature, he will be ruled by others, especially by those who understand his blindness better than he does. Understanding begins with a question, not an answer. Most men are trained to accept, not inquire. They are told what success looks like, what love should feel like, what a man ought to do. They accept these ideas as truth, never asking whose truth it is. They do not ask, is this who I am, or who I've been told to be? And because they do not ask, they become actors in a story they didn't write. Obedient, predictable, and easily influenced. This is where power leaves them. To understand is to break the cycle of reaction. Most men live in reaction. A woman is cold and he chases. A woman praises him and he glows. A woman withdraws and he panics. But these are not choices, they are reflexes. He calls them feelings, but they are merely the echoes of a conditioned mind. A man who cannot pause before reacting is not free. He is a servant of stimulus, dragged endlessly by the shifting winds of approval and rejection. True understanding allows space between the event and the response. A man sees her behavior, not as a personal attack, but as data. He notices her patterns, not to judge, but to understand. He studies his own response, not to suppress it, but to see its root. Why do I feel the need to prove myself? Why do I fear her silence? Why do I interpret her pulling away as my failure? In these questions lies the birth of awareness, and with it, the seed of liberation. A man who understands does not need to control others. He does not manipulate or dominate. He observes. He listens, not to words, but to energy, to patterns, to contradictions. He is no longer obsessed with being chosen. He is focused on clarity. What is she showing me? What am I ignoring? What have I idealized? The man who idealizes becomes blind. He creates an image of her, pure, beautiful, nurturing, and clings to it. When she fails to meet that image, he suffers. But it was not her who betrayed him. It was his illusion that betrayed him. Understanding shatters illusion. It replaces fantasy with vision, and only through vision can a man act with power. Most relationships suffer not from lack of love, but from lack of understanding. A man gives endlessly, hoping to be seen. But if he does not understand himself, how can she ever see him? He becomes a mystery even to those closest to him, because he has never dared to know his own depths. He fears what he might find, his insecurities, his rage, his hidden needs. The man who fears himself will always be ruled by others. Freedom does not mean detachment from people. It means detachment from unconscious behavior. A free man can love fully, but he is not dependent. He can walk away, not because he lacks feeling, but because he refuses to betray himself. He does not need to be right, he needs to be true. He does not need validation, he needs clarity. When a man begins to understand, his entire posture changes. He speaks less, he observes more. He no longer tries to convince anyone of anything, not even himself. He knows that truth does not need defending, simply needs to be seen. He stops over-explaining. He stops apologizing for his boundaries. He stops negotiating with chaos. And this calm unnerves those who live in confusion. For when a man is at peace with himself, he becomes unpredictable to those who rely on his insecurity to control him. A woman may test him. She may question his silence. She may provoke, withdraw, or even try to diminish him. But if his understanding is real, he will not be moved. Not because he is cold, but because he knows who he is. He knows why he is there, and he knows what he will and will not tolerate. This knowing gives birth to authority, not the kind that shouts or forces, the quiet authority of a man who governs himself. Freedom is not achieved through rebellion alone. It is achieved through insight, through seeing the invisible strings that pull you, through naming the false beliefs that enslave you, through recognizing the places where you traded your soul for comfort. And only then, when you know what you truly are and what you are not, do you begin to act from a place of stillness, not survival. A man's strength is not measured by how much he can lift, how much he can endure, or how loud his voice is. True strength is measured by how little he needs. The world teaches men to accumulate status, validation, affection, attention, and so they chase endlessly. They believe that by acquiring more, they will become more. But what they do not see is that every need becomes a chain, every craving becomes a shackle. Every ounce of dependency tightens the grip of the world around their throat, and the cruelest part of all is that they call this slavery love. Dependency is the slowest form of death for a man. It begins subtly. He meets someone. She makes him feel seen. She makes him feel important. He begins to light up when she enters and dim when she leaves. At first, he tells himself it is connection. Then he calls it romance. But over time, the truth begins to surface. Without her attention, he feels hollow. Without her approval, he feels uncertain. Without her love, he feels worthless. And so he adjusts, he bends, he performs, he becomes whatever he must to keep her near. But this is not love. This is survival. The man who needs a woman to feel whole will never feel whole, because no external source can permanently feed an internal hunger. A woman may adore him, but if he is addicted to that adoration, it will never be enough. One missed call will shatter him. One cold glance will unravel him. One moment of distance will spiral him into self-doubt, and she will feel it, not through words, but through presence. A woman always senses when a man is leaning too hard on her emotionally, when his center is no longer his own, and in that moment, her respect begins to die. It is not because she is cruel or heartless. It is because she cannot trust a man who collapses when she withdraws. Women do not want to carry a man emotionally. They want to feel his strength, not in his dominance, not in his control, but in his independence. In his ability to stand alone, to walk away if needed, to love without clinging, to stay without begging, to choose without fearing loss. This kind of man is rare because this kind of man has faced himself. He has stood in silence without a lover to validate him. He has walked through the pain of loneliness without numbing it with distractions. He has looked into the mirror, seen all the ways he tried to earn love, and dismantled every single one. He has died 1,000 deaths, each one a version of himself that depended on others to feel alive. And in those deaths, he found something unshakable. He no longer loves from a place of hunger, but from a place of overflow. He does not need her affection, but he welcomes it. He does not depend on her presence, but he enjoys it. He does not fear her leaving, because he is not afraid to be alone. This is what makes him dangerous, not in a violent way, but in the way that makes others feel they cannot use him. He cannot be bribed with beauty. He cannot be guilted with silence. He cannot be controlled with desire. This man does not chase. He does not convince. He does not explain why he is worthy. He knows he is. And that knowing is not arrogance. It is clarity. It is the result of standing alone in the dark and discovering that he is enough without applause, without affection, without attachment. Women pray that a man never reaches this place, not because they do not want strong men, but because such a man exposes the illusion that they hold power over him. When a man no longer needs her, she must confront the truth: her beauty, her attention, her approval. None of it can bind him. She must meet him in honesty, not manipulation. In truth, not performance. In presence, not pretense. And that terrifies her. Because for centuries, the game has been won through seduction, through mystery, through making him doubt himself just enough that he tries harder to win her. But this man does not play. He does not try harder. He either sees alignment or he does not. He either feels truth or he walks away. He does not make decisions based on fear of loss. He does not ask if she leaves. He asks, what if I abandon myself to keep her? In that shift, he becomes untouchable. Not emotionally closed, but emotionally sovereign. He feels deeply, but he chooses wisely. He gives fully, but he never gives himself away. He can walk beside her with love in his heart and still leave the moment he senses dishonor. He is not cold. He is clear. And that clarity, more than anything, what ends his dependency. Because clarity reveals who he is. And when a man knows who he is, no one, not even the woman he loves, can take that away. What you have heard is not a condemnation of women, nor a rejection of love, but a confrontation with the lies that keep men weak, confused, and obedient. The man who suffers endlessly in pursuit of affection is not noble. He is asleep. He mistakes obedience for virtue, neediness for connection, and pain for purpose. But the moment he begins to question, truly question, he steps out of the illusion. When he no longer begs to be chosen, he becomes the chooser. When he no longer clings to the roles given to him, he begins to embody his own truth. And when he no longer fears solitude, he becomes a force that can no longer be manipulated by attention, beauty, or silence. This is the truth many hope you never awaken to. Not because it is cruel, but because it is powerful. A man who no longer needs is a man who cannot be controlled. A man who sees clearly is a man who walks freely. He does not hate. He does not chase. He does not seek revenge. He simply returns to himself, And from there, he builds everything. Let others play the game of appearances, of strategies of approval. Your task is different. Your task is truth. And the moment you commit to it fully, you'll find something that most men never discover. You were never lacking. You were only lied to.